Hey guys, it's Sarah, and it's time to talk about my top reads of the year. I can't believe we're here already. The year's already over. It's crazy. I am going to do my favorite reads of 2024 a little bit differently this time because I noticed a trend when I was making my list. I noticed that some of the books I was picking were written by the same authors. I was like, interesting. And this was happening multiple times. I was like, oh, I have 2 books by this author that I feel like should be on this list. And it happened enough that I went, okay. So I am going to share 5 authors that I have read 2 books from this year that were favorites of mine. 5 different authors with 2 books each. And then I'm going to show you 5 standalones that are from those authors only, and it's only one. And then my favorite of the year is one of those standalones. So 5 authors with their books, 5 standalones with, those were kind of favorites of mine. I would say those are my top 5 as far as just one book by that author. And that's how we're going to do it this year. So not really a particular order, except I do have a number 1. Like, this is hands down my favorite book of the year. That will be at the end. All right, let's start with Mr. Stephen King. I have The Institute and I have The Stand. Both masterpieces. I loved both of these books. I was so invested in these. These both took me quite a while to read, obviously. We have very, very long books, especially with The Stand. This one I read in tandem with the audiobook. I sat down and read and listened at the same time. This one I read completely with my eyes only. The way this man tells a story, it's just completely mind-boggling to me. This was so epic and such a creative world. And I'm so glad I read it after our pandemic was over. I'll say that. It was just brilliant. I loved it so much, so much. I was never not once bored within these 1,000 pages. Never not once was I bored. The Institute goes a little bit more science-y with it, with children who are taken and researched on. I'll say that because they have some powers that are not being explained very well. Loved it. Loved both. Stephen King. Yes. All right, let's talk about Miss Abby Jimenez. I read the Happy Ever After playlist and Just for the Summer. Now, these are in 2 different companion series, and these are not the only 2 books by her I read, actually. I finished her backlist this year, which was awesome. These 2 were my favorites, though, of all the other ones that I read. These 2 stood out big time for me. So this one is the second book after The Friend Zone, and then this one is the 3rd book where that series starts with Part of Your World. Now, again, companion. You don't have to read them in order if you don't want to. I still recommend doing it because you are going to see characters pop up. Even this book had characters from this series, which was pretty cool. So there was some full circle moments going on in this one here. And I just absolutely love her books. I love her characters. I love her humor. She is very much on par with my sense of humor. And her characters are so great, and I love the love stories. She also mixes in some hard-hitting elements as well. This one definitely deals with grief, and this one is trauma, childhood trauma, definitely growing up in a hard household to live in, and also taking responsibility a little bit sooner than you're ready to. I'll say that. So, yeah, but Abby Jimenez is always a hit for me. Love her. Another queen for me, Kristin Hannah. I read The Women and I read The Great Alone. Don't ask me to pick. Don't ask me to pick. I can't. Oh my goodness. The Great Alone is set in Alaska in the 70s, which is following a man who was a soldier in the Vietnam War. He comes home with PTSD, decides he wants to go off grid with his family, moves them to Alaska. So so many things. I think about this book and everything just comes rushing back and I'm just like completely overwhelmed. It was incredible. And just the way she wrote Alaska almost as its own character was insane. And just what these people went through is nuts. The women also, Vietnam War. Interesting. This one follows a woman who is a nurse and she joins the soldiers in the Vietnam War, and you follow her and what that entails and what she goes through, who she meets, what happens when they get home, all that kind of stuff. This book is incredible. I loved Frankie. I loved what she went. I hate to say I loved what she went through. I didn't love what she went through, but what she went through was just written so well. I felt like I was there with her, even though I did not want to be there. No, but but I loved being there because just the way that Christen Hannah writes, it's unparalleled. Another example of amazing writing is S.A. Cosby. So I read Blacktop Wasteland and All the Sinners Bleed. Now, S.A. Cosby is not shy about anything. Nothing. No shyness with this man. He's going to take you dark places. He's going to take you to sexual places. He's going to take you to violent places, and he's not going to apologize for it. And I love that. So his main characters are always so gritty and always have some sort of background that you really get to discover and see how their backgrounds affect who they are today. And they're usually wanting to change how they have lived their lives. And you see them try to do that, but they get pulled into other things, which brings back memories of the past. And you see them just try to navigate all that. And it's hard. It's really hard. And he shows that. And I love his writing. I get sucked into his writing every single time, and it's amazing. And the last one of the authors is Taylor Jenkins Reid. So I read After I Do and Forever Interrupted. Both of these were incredible. Another author who really tackles hard topics and puts her characters through it. Apparently I like that. I don't know. Forever Interrupted, we are following a newlywed couple, and the husband passes away in the very beginning of the book. And so grief is heavy, heavy, heavy on the page here because you see this woman navigate that. After I Do is a very interesting look at marriage and a couple who are trying to make the decision if they want to stay married or not, and the steps that they take in order to figure that out. So, both incredible. Okay, top 5 of the year. Are these in order? Maybe a little bit. A little bit. Okay. Yeah, I would say these are, I did just like rearrange my pile. So I would say these are in order. These are my top 5. Number 5. It's a nonfiction. Fall and Rise, The Story of 9/11 by Mitchell Zuckoff. I try to read a nonfiction book about 9/11 every September. It is an event that I remember with great detail happening because I watched it as it was happening. I was in my 20s, and it's something that has very much affected me and my family. My husband joined the military right after 9/11 happened. And yeah, it is something very, very significant to me personally, on a personal level. So I am making an effort every year to read something about it, because every time I read a book about 9/11, I learn something new, and this was no exception. This was incredibly well researched. A lot of things I was reading about I had already known or had already, read stories or seen documentaries about or whatever, but it just kind of hits it home. And then some of the things in here that I already knew about were expanded on a little bit, which was nice. But it's such an important thing in our history that really shaped our country and the direction it went. And so it was incredible. Incredible. Okay, next one I have here is Sparks Like Stars by Nadia Shimi. I ended up really loving this book, and it was very much a surprise. I did not think it was going to hit me the way that it did, but this one we are following a woman who grew up in Afghanistan, and her family experienced something traumatic and violent, and she was the only survivor of it. Because of that, she ends up in America as a child and gets raised in America. As an adult, you are seeing her figuring some things out about her past and her family, and finds enough out that she decides she wants to go back to Afghanistan, visit her home, see if she can figure some things out, because she has some suspicions surrounding what was going on. And it was incredible. The writing in here was stunningly beautiful. I loved her writing. I have since picked up more of her books, and I do plan to read more from her because this was my first one that I read. But the story, the way it was written, the details, I could easily picture everything that was happening. I will say, if you like Khaled Hosseini, who wrote The Kite Runner and a couple of other books as well, if you like his writing style, I think this could be a good one for you. So something to keep in mind. But yeah, I loved it. All right, let's go to A Dark Academia. If We Were Villains by ML Rio. I loved this so much. I read through this so quickly. I could not stop listening to it. The audiobook is fantastic. I do recommend the audiobook because there's a lot of Shakespeare in here. We are following a troupe who performs Shakespeare plays, so a lot of it is in here. To the point, this is so much a part of their lives that they incorporate Shakespeare lines into their everyday talk. So, and that was so interesting to see. But it is a murder mystery as well. Somebody has died. One of the people in this group has died, and we're trying to figure out who, what, why, all that good stuff. So we're trying to unravel it at the same time. And it was great. It was great. I loved it so much. I definitely feel like these are all very unlikable characters as well, which can be fun. And yeah, I absolutely loved it. It was so atmospheric, and I thought it was fantastic. All right, coming in at number 2, the runner-up, guys. This book destroyed me. It destroyed me. The Last Letter by Rebecca Yarros. This is a romance. And she personally removed my heart from my body, stomped on it multiple times, and then tried to put it back, but it didn't go back in the same way. And I think that was intentional. Oh my goodness, this book. Okay. We are following a woman who has lost her brother in the war. He was in the military. And he dies in the war. So you see the aftermath of her dealing with that, dealing with his death, and dealing with the fact that she is now left with a property to care for. She is also going through her own things. She is a single mother, and dealing with a lot of stuff with that. Like a whole lot of stuff is going on with her on that side of it, and then also dealing with the death of her brother. Now, enter in a very handsome stranger who comes and stays on the property. And he's there for a very specific reason, which I'm going to leave for you guys to figure that out. So, the layers of things in here were astounding to me. I kind of went into this thinking, oh, it's going to be a nice little romance. Oh, no. Like, I was ugly crying, you guys. And I am not a big crier. I mean, I can cry, obviously, but I don't cry very often, especially if I'm reading a book. I was sobbing. Like I couldn't see the words through my tears at one point. I had to put it down. I had to collect myself. And then I picked it back up, and 2 paragraphs later, I'm sobbing again. Like, oh my gosh. It's incredible. It is incredible. My number 1 book of the year. My favorite book that I read this year, and I just finished it. I just finished it at the beginning of this month. That is All the Colors of the Dark by Chris Whitaker. I read this with a group of my friends. And when I tell you, this is the book that made me say, I want more longer literary books like this. That this is the book that started that for me, and why I made one of my goals next year to slow down and take in some longer, more literary books, because this one blew me away. This was also a read with Jenna pick over the summer, and that's why I picked it up. I'd also just heard really, really good things about it. And so when a couple of my friends were like, hey, let's read this, I was like, yes, let's do it, because I need a push. I need a push to get this read. It was incredible. It spans a long period of time. So we are following two friends, Patch and Saint, and we see them as children meet in a small town in Missouri. And you see them kind of start growing up together a little bit. And then one of them experiences something pretty traumatic, very traumatic. From there, you see how that changes their relationship, how it changes this person's relationship with everybody else around them. They don't live easy lives anyway, and add trauma on top of that. Oh my goodness. And you follow them through decades of their lives. So you start this book with them as children, you end the book with them as adults. And just the way it was written was beautiful. And I have heard it's a different writing style. He has a very distinct writing style, and you kind of either love it or hate it. I'm so happy I love it, because I connected with it so well, and I love the way it was written. It did take me a little bit to get used to the way that he wrote, but once I did, I was just like, this is brilliant. And just the things that were happening, I was not able to predict anything. I really wasn't. And me and my friends, we had theories, we were talking about stuff, and, what about this? And could this be what's happening? And, all this stuff. And it's just, so much happens. And I don't know. I don't want to give too much away, because I really went into this not knowing very much. And I think that's where you need to go. Just know that it is something that you follow these two characters throughout multiple decades. You see how the things that are happening in their lives affect everything around them, and how things can change. And there's also murder happening. So that's all I'm going to say. It was incredible. I cannot wait to read more from this author. I have some options now. Thank you. And you guys, this is one of the best books I've ever read. Hands down. Okay, guys, those were my favorite reads of 2024. It was an incredible reading year. I legitimately, some of the best books I've ever read ever were read in this year. It's insane. A couple of these books I finished, and I was like, was that one of the best books I've ever read? I think so. I think it was. So I'm going to call that a huge, huge win. All right, let me know down below if you've read any of these, and I would love to hear your thoughts. I am very much looking forward to starting 2025 and reading some good books and carrying on this streak here that I have of just reading some really incredible books and authors. All right, hope you guys enjoyed that, and I will see you guys again soon. Have a great day. Bye.